On February 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive, coordinated military strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran. Following the expiration of a 10-day ultimatum to Tehran, President Trump authorized the offensive, targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure and political leadership. The core strategic assumption was that overwhelming kinetic force would trigger a rapid regime collapse, permanently cementing Allied hegemony across the Middle East. Instead, the strike triggered a protracted multi-domain conflict. Iranian retaliation immediately targeted maritime chokepoints, paralyzing global logistics and forcing a transition to digital resource rationing. The 2026 conflict illustrates a specific failure. Traditional military force proved unable to protect the trade routes required for global macroeconomic stability. Iran executed its forward defense strategy, weaponizing the Strait of Hormuz, triggering a global chokepoint crisis. This map of the strait shows the collapse. Tanker traffic, previously 20 million barrels daily, dropped to near zero. Consequently, Brent crude futures surged to $120 per barrel, and a global deficit in diesel and jet fuel emerged as refining capacity vanished. While the International Energy Agency released 400 million barrels from emergency reserves, this action covered only 20 days of normal supply, providing only a temporary buffer against the deficit. Kinetic military superiority is functionally useless if the mechanical result is the asphyxiation of the victor's own energy supply chains. Beyond energy, the Persian Gulf functions as a foundational node in the global agri-food system, producing the vast majority of the world's nitrogen fertilizers. The maritime blockade stalled the export of 30 to 35% of the global urea supply, trapping 3 to 4 million tons of fertilizer trade every month. This dual-axis chart compares the immediate price spike against future crop projections. By early March 2026, Middle East urea prices rose to over $590 per ton. This spike in input costs forced farmers across the global south to reduce fertilizer application, depressing crop yields through 2026 and 2027. Simultaneously, high oil prices incentivized the diversion of existing agricultural commodities, like maize and soybean oil, toward the production of biofuels. The link between natural gas and fertilizer ensures that energy volatility will engineer structural food inflation, converting a regional conflict into a global famine risk. This raises a strategic question. Why can the U.S. military not project enough naval power to secure the strait and stabilize these global markets? U.S. state capacity is constrained by a $38.5 trillion national debt and profound internal fracturing that limits its ability to respond to external crises. In September 2025, the assassination of activist Charlie Kirk at a rally in Utah catalyzed a severe ideological schism within the American public. Commentators dedicated over 80 hours of streaming content and 70 individual episodes to the event, generating millions of views and record-breaking subscriber growth by pivoting away from official law enforcement findings. This content utilized a specific kernel of truth mechanism, weaponizing verified historical atrocities to lend credibility to unverified claims regarding modern elite assassinations. This heat map shows the domestic result. Over 66,000 National Guard members have been deployed across 23 states to manage civil unrest and maintain order at home. Domestic paranoia and cognitive warfare act as a strict ceiling on empire, preventing a unified American response to the crisis in the Persian Gulf. To maintain order amidst supply chain failures and fuel shortages, states are retooling their administrative systems to manage population needs. This has accelerated the global rollout of digital identity infrastructure as an emergency mechanism to manage resource distribution and counter synthetic fraud. Implementations are advancing rapidly, including the finalization of standards for mobile driver's licenses in the U.S. that permit remote, hardware-agnostic verification. These systems are undergoing function creep, where tools designed for emergency resource distribution evolve into mandatory gateways for accessing banking and civic entitlements. This creates severe risks for marginalized populations in rural areas who lack digital infrastructure, potentially excluding them from basic civic services. The 2026 crisis transformed digital identity from a tool of administrative convenience into an essential mechanism for societal survival and control. Simultaneously, the power grid is facing a separate, unyielding demand: the electricity required to run artificial intelligence data centers. This chart demonstrates the bottleneck. Data centers are projected to require 945 terawatt-hours annually by 2030, a figure comparable to the entire electricity consumption of Japan. Fossil fuels are too volatile for this demand, and renewable energy sources are too intermittent to meet the zero downtime requirements of AI inference engines. Hyperscalers are bypassing the public grid entirely, funding a private renaissance in nuclear energy through the use of small modular reactors. Microsoft has secured 835 megawatts of dedicated nuclear capacity, while Meta is investing in next-generation natrium reactors and prepaying for dedicated powerhouses. These assets are often placed on decommissioned uranium enrichment sites to bypass regulatory friction and secure domestic fuel supply chains. The legacy of the 2026 conflict is a bifurcated energy grid, a premium, privately funded nuclear infrastructure for AI, and a stressed public grid left for the citizenry. Zooming out, the global geopolitical vacuum created by American distraction and supply chain asphyxiation is being rapidly filled. The BRICS Plus alliance is capitalizing on this chaos to consolidate alternative financial systems and insulate themselves from Western sanctions. China is expanding the use of the petro-yuan in Middle Eastern markets, while securing overland energy corridors from Russia to bypass maritime chokepoints. Nations across the global south are adopting multi-alignment strategies, maintaining energy ties with Russia and the West while competing strategically for technology. The global system is now aggressively polycentric, driven by transactional realism and resource pragmatism rather than ideological alliances. To survive an era defined by permanent volatility and structural scarcity, institutional portfolios must be fundamentally restructured. Traditional 60-40 portfolios are failing, as long-duration government bonds no longer provide a hedge against kinetic warfare and supply chain severance. This matrix shows the fortress portfolio strategy, dividing capital across 3 buckets: defensive, strategic growth, and aggressive growth. The defensive bucket prioritizes physical gold and short-term treasury bills to protect against the currency debasement inherent to wartime deficit spending. Aggressive growth opportunities reside in the North American nuclear fuel cycle, as uranium producers gain immense pricing power from the hyperscaler pivot to nuclear power. Survival now requires investing in geographically insulated transshipment hubs capable of maintaining global logistics amidst broken trade routes. Navigating the 2026-2030 forecast requires abandoning the illusion of globalized efficiency in favor of ruthless, hardened resilience.